Professional photography is more than just a passion for Will Crockett. It's an opportunity to accelerate beyond all limits.
You'll see that that light is going to be one stop brighter than this light here, and I've got gorgeous looking images with one shot. Ready? I love one and dones. This is so fun.
Combining technology, inspiration, and communication, Will Crockett stands tall at the crossroads of photography and education.
Well, hi, it's Will Crockett here, and welcome to one of our Friday Photo School Foundation seminars where we explore the foundations of professional photography. Today, we're going to wrestle with one of the most vexing issues of all of professional photography. That is, how to make exposures with our cameras that are not too light and not too dark, but just right. Well, there's not a whole lot of guessing involved, and as I'm about to show you, we can't really rely on the automatic functions of our cameras in order to produce really excellent results. So let's boost the quality of our photography by learning how to control our photos so they're not too dark or too light. Getting them just right is really actually very easy. I'm going to show you some example photo sessions today on how cameras get fooled when they're in automatic modes. Then I'm going to show you how to flip them over to a manual mode and control your light exactly. Because isn't that what photography is? Photography is all about controlling light. Well, one of the things that I happen to be pretty good at is controlling various aspects of our light, and we're going to work on that today in both available light, meaning continuous light sources, and we're going to touch on how we're going to make flash just right. So let's get started with an example of what's bad. I know, isn't that funny? Let's take a look at what happens when our cameras really don't make terrific decisions. You'll see on the set behind me there that I've got a rather brightly colored set. I've got a couple of chickens. I went to the prop place and I got us a couple of chickens on a lightly colored background. And what we'll find out is that our cameras, when they're set in automated exposure modes, will get a little confused depending on how they're set up. So as an example, the first thing I want to do is I want to use the available light here. Now we'll bring out flash a little bit later, but the video studio that we're actually working in today is lit with daylight professional grade fluorescent tubes. And these fluorescent tubes give us a constant array of light that we can use and actually take really nice photos pretty much anywhere in the whole studio, be it on a still camera as well as on a video camera. So for now, let's keep it really simple. And I'm going to use just the available light here, the consistent daylight that's produced by our fluorescent tubes, for a little bit of an experiment. Come on back and let me see. We're going to first put our camera into an automated exposure mode. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use aperture priority mode. That means that we're going to set the aperture on our camera first. Our camera is then going to analyze the light that comes through the lens. Then we're going to have the camera choose what our shutter speed is going to be. So we're in aperture priority mode. I'm going to look through there to make sure everything's okay. Yep. I'm going to tell it, go ahead and make a picture in aperture priority mode. And look what pops up on my computer. I got a picture of my two awesome chickens, don't I? There's my chickens. Got a light background, little blue dot in the center of it, but don't you think it looks a little dark? Well, I can see on your end of your video podcast there that it's a little dark, and in fact, when I look at it on my computer, it's pretty dark here too. So I want to be able to find out, hey, is it just my computer or is it the actual file? So guess what I did? I went and made a print of, don't mind Dave here by the way, he pops in and out all the time to show you what it looks like when we see things here on the set. I want to show you a print of what it looks like when we go ahead and print that file without any corrections, right? We don't want to run it through Photoshop or whatever tool you use. Is that file really dark? Well, Dave, come with me. Let me show the folks. Well, I've printed out through one of our big inkjet printers what this file looks like, and in fact, you'll see that it really is dark. Dave, let's put this next to the chickens and see what we have here. Watch this. You can see in real life there's the chickens, and there's the photo of the chickens, And you'll see that the chickens are pretty dark, aren't they, in the photo, but in real life, they're not so dark. Well, we've got a problem, don't we? Sure do. We've got actually a pretty high-end professional camera there. That is a Nikon D700 with a very good lens. It was set into an automated exposure mode, and it got confused, didn't it? Why? Well, there's a couple of chickens in there that are white, and they're shiny. And when the auto exposure and the metering system for that camera analyzed the scene, they made a mistake. Did you notice how I used the phrase to analyze the scene? Yeah. Cameras, in fact, are pretty smart, but they're not quite as smart as humans are. Maybe someday they will be, but as of right now, we still got a ways to go. Our camera just made a mistake, didn't it? Yeah. Our camera analyzed the scene of the chickens and the blue dot in the background, and it analyzed it incorrectly. When it decided to make an exposure decision for us, it made the wrong one. It underexposed our shot by maybe 2/3 of an f-stop. That's a lot. Well, how are we going to fix that? Well, we're going to fix that by getting away from automated exposure modes. Why? Well, we want to shoot it correctly because we don't want to work on the computer any more than we have to, fixing simple problems like the one that just occurred here. So in order for us to fix that, we're going to use a meter. Well, you say, well, hang on, Will. Can't we just use the meter that's in the camera and analyze the histogram from that meter? Well, you know, I'm not a big fan of that. Can you do it? Yeah, it's really hard to do. Yeah. I'm pretty well versed at all this exposure control stuff and how to make pictures that are just right. That's what I do. But what if we were to use the histogram? All right, let me ask Dave to come on in and we'll take another look. What do you say we set up this camera so that we can shoot a picture, and on the back of this camera is going to pop up the histogram. So I'm going to take another picture. And on the back of the camera there, Dave can get a shot of that. You'll see there's my chickens, and hey, they're looking a little dark, aren't they? Yep. Well, I got a histogram on the right side there. Well, you've heard a million times over that people say if you're going to analyze a histogram that you should have equal space on both sides, right? You should have a gap on the right and a gap on the left, and then the data from your chickens or whatever it's going to be in the center. Well, that's not really the way this histogram should read. This histogram is made up of data, right? From black to white and everything in between. It gets really confusing to interpret that data sometimes, doesn't it? It does for me. Do I analyze histograms in my work? Yeah, only when I'm trying to protect highlights or protect shadow values, or I have an extremely difficult set that has a lot of light in it. Yeah, I will manage a histogram. But when it comes to basic photography, do I mess with a histogram? No. Why not? Well, it's confusing and it's slow. I want to be able to produce the highest quality photography I can when I go click. No matter if I'm shooting JPEG or RAW, I want to do the least amount of corrections and post-processing to my files ever. Yeah. Why? Well, I don't want to mess around with all that stuff. I want to be able to create a really nice image and then use that image to go ahead and make a nice print, or in my case, I'm a commercial photographer, send it out to a client to get it printed in a catalog or billboard or wherever it's going to go. So instead of using the meter that's in the camera to interpret the scene and give us exposure values that we either judge by blinkies on the back of the camera or by the histogram on the back of the camera, or even shooting tethered like I tend to and analyzing it on a computer screen, I'd rather do it the easy way. The easy way and the fastest way is to use a meter. Sure. Here I have a series of meters that I want to show you. Now, today's program is brought to you by the good folks at Sekonic. Now, that doesn't mean that this is a Sekonic infomercial. It's not. This is a program on how you can get the exposure value, the lightness or darkness of your photos, nailed perfectly. Now, there are plenty of different exposure meters out there. These are ones that I happen to be very, very comfortable with. And the good folks at Sekonic have paid for this program to be delivered to you for free. Hats off to them, huh? So 3 meters I've got here. Let's take a look at them. The furthest one away, the one on your far right, that is going to be a Sekonic L758. Now that meter is a high-end professional photographer meter. It is going to measure ambient light. It's also going to measure flash. It's going to measure the light coming through the little lumisphere that we call incident metering, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And it also does reflective metering in a very precise way. So that will allow a photographer who shoots commercial, industrial, and particularly landscape type of images with super precise, just right light values. Next one over, an unusual one you may not have seen before. That is a color meter. Now that one doesn't measure exposures. What it does is it measures the color of light. It measures the average color temperature and it measures the light balance values. And you'll see pros like me using that to determine what different types of colors of light that we've got going on. So we won't be needing a color meter today. I just thought you may never have seen one and I'll show you one. But over to your far left, that little silver guy down there, yeah, that's the most popular flash meter and ambient light meter in the world. Yep, the Sekonic L358 is a joy. Why? Small, compact, lots of great features, very simple to use, it's extremely durable, and it's low cost. Less than $300 gets you the full boat version with the Pocket Wizard built inside. Let's use the meter at its most basic function. Let's figure out how we're going to take this meter and set it up for success. When we talk about being successful when we're going to measure light values, we need to get familiar with the meter, and we also have to keep in mind that we want to do the thinking for our camera as well as our metering system, right? The shot we did of the chickens that's dark, the reason it's dark is because the camera guessed incorrectly. Well, we don't want to guess. We're going to use a meter so that we don't have to guess. Then we're going to allow the information on the volume of the light to be shared between the camera and the meter. So when we want to set up for success, the first thing we're going to do with our flash meter is start making it share the data with our camera. So I'm going to pick up a camera right here and I'm going to set it not so much on automated exposure, but I'm going to change it over to a manual exposure. Dave, come on in here. Let me show you how we're going to do that. Right there, we're on aperture priority mode, and I'm going to hold down the mode button and I'm going to spin this little bad boy here over to M for manual. Can you see that? I think you can see that on TV. There you go, on manual. So you see in the upper corner, it's M, and then that's 160th of a second shutter speed, and then finally F13. And we're going to talk about all those for you. First thing we want to do, we want to put our cameras into manual mode. Why? We don't want the internal meter to make any decisions for us. We would like to have our camera learn about light values and use the decisions made by us plus our meter. Next thing we want to do is we want to be able to set our own f-stops and shutter speeds. Here's where some photographers get really confused. Hold on. This is very simple. Let's take the easy one first, shall we? Shutter speeds. Shutter speeds are a very easy thing for us to deal with, but the numbers get a little confusing sometimes, don't they? Sure. Let me show you an example. Let's say we take a shutter speed of 1/125th of a second. What that means is the amount of time that the shutter is actually open and is allowing the light to pass into making a picture is a value of 1/125th of a second. It reads 125 on our camera, doesn't it? But it means 1/125th of a second. Now let's say that we want more light to come in to make our picture. Well, we'll move that number down. And as we move that number down, say to 4, that doesn't mean 4 hours, 4 minutes, 4 days. What that means is 1/4 of a second or 1/4 of a second. That's longer time, isn't it? 1/4 of a second is a longer time than 1/125th of a second. So as we move our shutter speed dial down to a lower number, we're actually getting more light come through to our camera system. So shutter speeds, pretty important little guys, aren't they? Our shutter speeds are going to control our available light for us, and it's also going to help us a little bit when it comes to shooting flash. Not as much, but a little bit. We'll talk about that when we get to flash later in segment 3 of the program. Well, shutter speeds, pretty easy to deal with, right? Next, apertures. So many photographers get confused on apertures. Let me just help you make this as easy as humanly possible. Ready? An aperture is really just a disc that lives inside your lens. It's not even in the camera, it's actually inside the lens there. And that little disc inside there, you can actually see me turn it on and off. I can open and close it. See that from inside there? Oh, there it is. There it is. See it close down? There. That is my aperture. That's right. Inside there, we're going to have a disc that has a hole right in the middle of it, doesn't it? You saw that hole in the center there. Well, this one happened to be set up at f13. Well, if I were then to change that, say, to f4, you'd see that the hole in that disc would be bigger. Hang on, let me explain. When we talk about an aperture is a disc. In fact, let me show you one. Here's your basic disc. And when we set that to a common aperture setting, say of f8, we're going to see a hole in the disc that's about that big. That value of light that passes through that hole is defined by f8. Now, what if we wanted to double the amount of light that goes through that hole? We're then going to open up that hole so it lets twice as much light through. And guess what that's called? That's called f5.6. Yeah. Once again, as the number goes down, the quantity goes up. So when we want to let in twice as much light than we do with f8, we're going to go to an f-stop of 5.6. Let me show you some more. Say here we're at f5.6 and we want to double the light again. Say we want to have twice as much light go in than 5.6. You know what we do? We change to an f-stop of f4. That's right. f4 is twice as much light coming through that hole than 5.6. Pretty cool, huh? These are whole f-stops, and these are our friends. Our f-stop range in typical photography, and of course there's always different ways to shoot pictures, but most photographers are going to work at the widest hole in the disc, their maximum aperture typically of around f2.8. Then we're going to move from 2.8 up to f4. That's our next hole stop. Then if we go another hole stop, we're at f5.6, f8, f11, 16, 22, 32, and beyond. Now, it does depend on what type of camera and what lens you have if you're going to be able to access f2.8 or actually even lower, or f16 and higher. It is different on different types of cameras and different types of lenses. But one thing is the same. No matter if we use a Nikon camera, or here I've got a little Fuji point-and-shoot camera, or if we use a Canon camera or a Minolta camera or even an old Deerdorf camera, an f-stop is an f-stop is an f-stop. And the difference between f8 and 5.6 is double the amount of light. The opposite's true too. Say we go from f8 to f11. That's a smaller hole. Want to see? Watch this. Here's f8, and here's f11. f11 lets in half as much light as f8 does. See how it works? That's why f-stops have odd little numbers. You'll see that the size isn't half the way. It's half as much volume coming through. If we want to go half as much light as f11, right? Here's f11. Say we want to cut that light in half. We're going to go to f16. That's right. It's a full stop, isn't it? A stop means the halving or doubling of the volume of light. Sweet stuff. Now, way back when photography started, we used to be just fine with whole f-stops, but no more. We now have technology that allows us to go to not only half f-stops, but third f-stops. Most modern cameras, the ones I'll be working with and showing you today, are going to work in third f-stops. So, what we can do is, we can have our meter work in half or third f-stops with us. Why? Well, if our cameras, say you buy a Nikon D700 or you buy a Canon 5D Mark II, two of my favorite cameras. If you were to buy those and put a good lens on there, you'd see that they would be able to easily shift between not just f8 and f11, but they'll work in thirds of an f-stop in between. So when you click on your aperture setting, you'll go from f8 to f9, which is f8 plus a third, to f10, which is f8 plus 2/3, to f11. We've taken f8 to f11, which we know is one stop difference, right? And we've chopped it up into thirds so that we have more control. Camera manufacturers are giving us more control over how light or how dark our photos are going to be. How are they doing it? Well, instead of just giving us whole f-stops, they're now giving us thirds of f-stops. And that's where we want to work. If we're going to use available light like we did with the chickens, or if we're going to use flashlight like we're about to do on a lovely young model, we don't want to work at whole f-stops. We want to work in thirds of an f-stop. Or in fact, more advanced photographers watching this video are going to work in tenths of an f-stop. For today's program, we're going to switch in thirds. We're going to have our meter work to average the light values that it sees into 1/3 f-stops. Why? Because that's what our camera clicks understand. When we come back from a commercial break, we're going to take a look at full f-stops and third f-stops. We're also going to get our meters to match our cameras. We're also going to show how we're going to share that information between the meter and the camera. We're going to make a couple of really great images for you too. But before we bust away, take a look at this special segment for those folks who are going to use one of my favorite meters, a Sekonic meter, and you want to set it to 1/3 f-stops because right out of the box it measures in 1/10 f-stops. So check it out. We'll be right back in just a couple of minutes. What's the world's most popular pro flash meter? It's the Sekonic L358. It's loaded with usable features, it's durable, and it's affordable. There's a reason why it's so popular. Sekonic helps you control the light. What's the reference standard in wireless flash triggering? Pocket Wizard. In the studio, on location, or even in pro sports arenas, the core of Pocket Wizard's success is the affordable Plus 2 with 4 different wireless triggering channels. And there's the feature-rich Pocket Wizard Multimax with 32 channels and upgradable firmware. Thousands of photographers around the globe trust their shoots to Pocket Wizard. Shouldn't you?
Think low-cost photo education can't be any good? Think again. FridayPhotoschool.com delivers awesome online seminars that make you a better photographer. Full motion video seminars from top-notch speakers, now with big, crisp network web TV image quality. $10 to view live as we record them, $15 to download anytime.
So say you're all excited and you get yourself a brand new meter. Here's a brand new Sekonic 358 in the box. How do you set it up to work in third stop increments like we're showing you here in this video? Well, it's actually very simple. We're going to take one brand new out of the box. I'm going to show you how we set the little switches underneath the cover for you to be set up for success to be able to get your photos just right. First off, of course, this is one that has the Pocket Wizard transmitter included into the kit. Of course, you can tell because it's got the little sticker on, little sticker on the top there. It says Pocket Wizard included. Of course, got your little warranty card, all that other stuff you got to save. I'm going to turn this around so Dave can see it. Here's a great little piece. This is the quick guide. This is laminated. You're going to throw this in your camera case or your meter case. This has got all kinds of great information while you're learning or in case you already know some stuff and you get stuck. Okay, you've got the Operating manual, the book. This is going to show you all the details you could ever want to know and a bunch of other details you don't really care so much about knowing, but hey, it's glad to know them. You know what I mean? We're going to crack this open. Here is the nice little carrying pouch, which we'll talk about a little bit later today. This is going to fit right onto your belt right there with this little clip. And let's crack this little guy open here. And you'll see here is our meter. On the back, we've got a water-resistant little pouch that we just crack this open, take the little piece off. Your battery's going to go there, and of course, you get one included in the kit. You just take it out of a little wrapper. That's not candy. Do not eat that. That fits right inside there. And of course, you'll also find the Pocket Wizard system. Fits right inside here. You got to take this little cover off. Pops in. I've done 100 of these, I think, over the years. But the more important stuff is, let's see, Dave, if you can get a good shot of that, buddy, right here. This little panel is going to allow us to make the decisions that we need to make. Now, you'll notice from the factory, these little switches, by the way, are called DIP, D-I-P switches, DIP switches. I think it stands for dual inline position. Boy, how's that for knowing something that I'm not supposed to know? Well, these are going to have different functions. They have two positions, either down or they're up, and you'll see that their functions are listed here on the actual panel. Well, the two on the right are the ones that we want to worry about, and if you just want the short course on how you get this set up the way Will Crockett thinks you might want to get going, is just flip these two on the right to the up position. That means that it will allow you to read your aperture values, not in tenths of an f-stop, but in thirds of an f-stop. And they will also allow you to go ahead and set your camera to your meter. Now, if your camera uses half-stop increments instead of third-stop increments, you'll find out that the switch on the far right will allow you to change that. So say you didn't want to use tenths of a stop, you wanted to use fractions of a stop, right? That's the number 3 position. And if you wanted to move it into half stops instead of third stops, you take the last switch and you just move it on down. It says, I do believe it says step. It means third step or half step. The third step means third of a stop steps. Half means half of a stop steps. So once you get it set up this way, easiest way to go is last 2 dip switches up, first 2 dip switches down. Throw in the battery, put in your Pocket Wizard transmitter, learn to use it by reading the quick guide, or of course your instruction manual is a great way to go, and then get out there and use that guide to make some just right images of your own. Measuring light with a histogram is pretty inaccurate and it's confusing. Measuring light with a light meter is faster, easier, much more accurate, and you'll notice that all the pros here on Friday Photo School use a meter just about every day they shoot. The Sekonic L358 is the most popular meter. It's affordable and it'll get the job done both indoors and out. If you need reflective light meter reading, then step up to the feature-rich Sekonic L758DR and enjoy full control over every exposure you make. One of the strobe systems you'll see in today's program is the ProPhoto Acute B2. It's a small, lightweight, yet very powerful battery-powered flash pack that brings 600 watt-seconds to anywhere you can think of. Just charge it up and you can expect about 350 half-power flashes from just one of these little batteries. And you can trigger this pack with your Pocket Wizard as well. ProPhoto Acute B2, famous for quality and reliability. Welcome back. We want to take another look at f-stops, aperture settings, discs with holes in them. Well, they're all kind of the same thing, aren't they? We've got whole apertures that we deal with, and then we have fractions of apertures. Most of us are in third of f-stops instead of half of f-stops, but we do have the ability, as you saw, to flip your meter to half f-stops or a third f-stops. Now, just for example, I'm going to use third f-stops here, of course, with the modern cameras. So let's go ahead and work in third f-stops. So how do those all fit together, and how do you get the information back and forth between your meter and your camera? Let's take a look at the f-stop scale, if you will. When it comes to whole f-stops, the ones that we tend to use more often are 2/8 and f4, 5/6, f8, f11, and of course f16. Those are whole f-stops. And we move between those whole f-stops. We are doubling or halving the volume of light that comes through that hole in the disc. That's all those guys are. But what happens on your camera when you see something like 7.1 or 4.5? How do those fit in? Well, let me show you. There's f2/8, and when we move a third closer to f4, we can call that f3.2, or we just round that off to 3.2. We don't really say the point when we're communicating that back and forth. That's a third of an f-stop greater than f2/8. Next one up, 3.5. Then we go another third. That puts us right back to the whole f-stop, which is f4. Then a third beyond that is f4.5. Then f5. The next whole f-stop is f5.6. Beyond that, we've got f6.3, f7.1, then f8. Then, of course, the easy ones, right? f9, 10, and then the next whole f-stop is f11. Then we skip one. There's f13, there's f14, and then the next whole f-stop is f16. So if you look at this scale that's in front of me, you'll see whole f-stops and thirds of f-stops grouped together. So when we have our flash meter and our camera set to work in third f-stop values, our meter will tell us exactly how to set up our camera. Some photographers will use tenths of f-stops. So instead of, say, f5.6, their meter will read f5.6 and 0 tenths. Well, then if they have just a little bit more light, it'll read f5.6 and 1 tenth. And it's up to the photographer to decide, do I back my light off a tenth of an f-stop? Because you certainly can't set your camera to f5.6 and 1 tenth. You can set it to f5.6 and a third, though, can't you? Sure. f5.6 and a third for old guys like me. We never really used f5.6, 6, 3, 7, 1, 8. We used 5.6, 5.6 plus a third, 5.6 plus 2/3, and then f8. Nowadays, we're switching back to that more digital scale. So it's going to be 5.6, 6.3, 7.1, 8.0. But if you have your meter set to read in tenths of an f-stop, f5.6 and 3 tenths is pretty much the same thing as f6.3. Don't get confused. If your meter reads in tenths of an f-stop, just go back like I showed you in that video. Pop the back of the cover off, flip your meter over so it measures in thirds of an f-stop. Your meter will round up or round down to the next third, making your life easier. If you are a super precise photographer or you're shooting really critical, say, product shots, then you may want to go back to work in tenths of an f-stop, and then you decide, am I going to round up or round down? If you have something, say, that's chrome and shiny, and you want to protect all the highlight values you can, and you're right in between a third of an f-stop's rounding off values of your meter, you can make that decision. For now, once we're really starting to get our pictures just right, we're just going to allow the meter to help us out and round up or round down to the nearest third of an f-stop. So, let's go back and take another look at our chickens, shall we? Our chickens. We got a little problem, don't we? Yeah, we got these nice white, actually kind of off-white chickens. Dave, will you come in a little closer, buddy, and we'll take a look at this print again. We've got a set that I made. In fact, this background here is a custom-made background that I actually made with the inkjet printers that you see on the sets here. Got a blue dot just for a little color and contrast. Got a white inner glow, gray to dark gray outer glow. And of course, oh, Dave, nice shot. Dave's got a nice shot there of the chickens. So you can see that the chickens are white. Now hold that shot for me, guys. Here is the print that we made of the chickens using the automatic exposure mode. Is that the best spot for you? There you go. We got a big difference, don't we? That white color is certainly not translated on this print. Now, did we do anything funny with this print? Not in the slightest. Not in the slightest. The print that you see here is a JPEG straight out of the camera using aperture priority mode. That's an automated exposure mode. We snapped a JPEG. We sent it through one of our high-end inkjet printers. Never went through Photoshop. We don't even drive our inkjet printers with Photoshop. We use a special lab-grade piece of software. So this print is extremely accurate, meaning it's very similar to the file that it created. Well, how are we going to fix this problem? We're going to control the exposure ourselves. Let me show you how. First thing is, we're going to break out my trusty Sekonic 358. Next, I'm going to make sure that it's set. Dave, if you can get nice and close there, it's set in the ambient light mode. Can you see that up there? It's the little sun. There you are. That means it's going to measure the continuous ambient light that I want. And then I am going to set my shutter speed, and it's going to determine what my aperture setting is going to be. So let me show you how I use that. I'm going to go back to where the chickens are. Now, it's hard for you to see. You don't see the whole set here, but we do have a hair light kind of on the back of the set here. So I'm going to make sure I don't cast a shadow on that. I'm going to take my exposure meter. I'm going to place it right underneath the chin of my little chicken, and I'm going to point it back into the lens, and I'm going to make an exposure meter reading. And if you look here, Dave, close there. There you are, pal. Sorry to hit your focus there. Yep. That's going to be, great job. Look at this camera work. That's 800 ISO. See it up in the corner, 800 ISO. T is going to be my shutter speed. Time, 1/30 of a second. F is my f-stop setting, and it's 5, f5.0. So 800 ISO, 1/30 of a second, f5. Let's set the camera there. Let's make a shot. Let's take a look at it. So, of course, we're going to take this out of its automated mode, going to put it in manual mode. I'm going to double check my ISO. Yep, it's 800. I'm going to set my aperture to 5, f5. And remember our shutter speed, everything you want to know is going to be right on your meter. I'm going to set it to 1/30 of a second. Now I'm going to reshoot that same shot that I just did. I'm going to make sure it's in focus. Yep, tell the chicken to smile. Going to grab a quick shot here and take a look at the computer. What do you know? I got some happy looking chickens. Yes, I do. Look at my nice bright white chicken, my blue, my background, the chicken's cute little feet. We've got a proper exposure. Isn't that something else? Yeah. Well, we're going to send that over and get a print made of it so that we can see the difference between the dark chickens and the light chickens. But while we're waiting for that, I want to explain one more little thing that happens. We're using a light-colored subject, the white chickens, on a light-colored background, that light-colored inkjet print that we're using for a background. And we're noticing that the camera is misinterpreting that scene, and it's making the resulting photo too dark, right? It's nowhere near just right. This photo, that's too dark. Can we fix this in Photoshop or Lightroom or Painter or whatever you decide you want to use, even iPhoto? Can we fix this? Well, yeah, we can get pretty close. This is kind of extreme. Will we get the rich, lovely tones if we were to fix this in some sort of software application and then make another print versus if we would have photographed it correctly the first time? The answer is no. Software will not save this and make a print that is equal to the print that we've got printing right now. Right. Software is great, guys. Now, if we would have shot it in RAW, RAW is lossless, we could make the change on a RAW file and we'd be great. But if you shot it in JPEG, or if those of you that shoot in TIFF, shot it in TIFF, we would not have the ability with software to repair that. RAW files, terrific. RAW files are big, they take a lot of time, they take a lot of extra time on the computer to go ahead and change. We want to be able to gather, even for our RAW files, the best possible, just right light value. And we do that with a meter, not a histogram, not the blinkies, not some sort of gray targety thing, whatever, you're going to set a spike on the back of your camera. No. The right way to make sure that your light values are not too dark or too light is with a meter. But what would happen if we changed our chickens over here to say a dark sculpture? How about a flat, dark, black piece of wooden sculpture? And say our client wanted that photographed on a dark, dark, dark red background. So it's a deep, bold, rich photo. Okay, can we do that? Of course we can. But we'll have the opposite problem. This is a light-colored subject that our camera misinterpreted and made it dark. Do you know if we had a dark-colored chickens, if these were very dark brown or black or very rich blue chickens on a black background, do you know our camera would have the opposite problem? Instead of recording it too dark, it will record it too light. Yeah, that's right. Our automatic exposure systems are fine for shooting out on a cloudy day, or in fact even inside here when we have full tonality photographic subjects. Caucasian skin, black shirt, blue table. Would an automatic exposure value work okay in here? Yeah, it would work okay. Would a meter do a better job? Yes, it will. Handheld meters are always your best guarantee for just right exposure values, and we like to call them light values. I hear that my printer has finished over there. Would you like to see our final chicken shot? I'll bet you would. Saji, grab me my other chicken shot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it right next to not only the bad chicken shot, thank you, sir, but I'm going to put it next to the chickens. Here we go. Dave, if you can pull a shot of this for me, buddy, I'll do my best here for you. What do you know? There's the good chicken shot. Man, we got chickens. We got chickens. Here's a bad chicken shot. Oh, that's bad. Now, I'm looking on the production monitor and I see that my print has more highlight value here in real life. The color of this chicken print and the color of that chicken are much more similar than I see on the production monitor. Video does do some things to it. Also, this is a very high-end camera. We're going to get lots of detail, but you'll see that the colors are terrific, and it's not this. How about it? So how are we going to get the ability to record just right light values? We're going to slow down. We're going to put that camera into manual exposure mode. We're going to use our flash meter the way it's supposed to be used, pointing that dome right into the lens, not into the light source. And we're going to transfer that data, allow that data to be shared, if you will, between the meter and the camera. Now, when we come back, we're going to take a look at how we're going to do that with flash. Flash is a different chicken altogether. We're going to take a real portrait of a real cute, amazing, bright young lady with using one flash meter, same camera, same lens, and guess what? We're going to have light values that are just right. Be back just after this commercial break. When you're ready to get serious about your lighting, you need lighting tools that will help you shape the light to meet your photographic vision. The softboxes, grids, umbrellas, and more from Creative Light will help you to produce that premium light quality you're looking for without costing a fortune. Get inspired to get more creative with your lighting at creativelight.com. Carbon fiber tripods are strong, lightweight, and a joy to use. But they've been kind of pricey and out of the range of some photographers' budgets. The new line of carbon fiber tripods from Enduro are designed by photographers for photographers, and they're priced right. This is my Enduro CT314 tripod on the Enduro BH3 head, and I love it. It's easy to set up, it's fast to readjust in the middle of a photo session, and it travels like a dream. So if you're thinking about stepping up to carbon fiber, think Enduro. You know, working with making just right photos of available light, or ambient light as it's called, is pretty straightforward stuff. Well, now we're going to move into flash. And we were going to use today here some studio flash. Now we could use on-camera flash or off-camera battery-powered flash if we wanted to as well. However, flash meters like this do not work in TTL mode. So if you've got your Canon Speedlight or your Nikon SB800 there, terrific. If you get it out of TTL exposure mode, you'll be able to use a flash meter. If you're confused on how to change the exposure mode of your flash, please read your owner's manual. It's all in there. You'll find out most of the flashes, particularly the ones that we recommend on shootsmarter.com, have a TTL mode, be it iTTL or eTTL or whatever TTL. They also have a manual power mode for their manual exposures, and they have an auto or sometimes an autofill mode on the Quantum Q flash system. So we're going to be able to use our flash meter to measure flash as well as ambient or available light. And in fact, some more advanced users, and in future programs here on Friday Photo School's Foundations seminar series, we'll be talking about how we're going to blend available light and flash together. But for today, let's just deal with available light and let's just deal with flash as two independent pieces. Well, you'll see that I've got a flash set up here, and I'll show you what I got cooking. I've got my same camera set up on the tripod, and I've got a Pocket Wizard +2 transceiver on the hot shoe, which is going to send a wireless triggering signal over to a Pro Photo pack that I've got on the floor. We'll show you a little bit more about that just a little later in this program. I've also got just your basic strip bank, softbox, nothing fancy here, regular tool that I use all the time. And in fact, I'll bring in my lovely model. Liz, good morning. Would you come on in and have a seat? Good to see you.
Good to see you.
We're going to use the same background that we did on those cute little chickens earlier in the program to use for a background for a portrait. We're going to use one flash, and here's what we're not going to do. We're not going to just guess at the power. Let's turn this to quarter power because it recycles real fast. And let's just guess that we could set it at, I don't know, ISO 400 at f5.6 at a 60th of a second. Guessing when it comes to flash is really not so terrific. But I do see a lot of programs where photographers say, you know, we're able to use a histogram in order to judge basic portraits super easy and super fast and super quick. Well, let's take a look at that, shall we? I'm going to bring Dave, our cameraman, back in here. And Dave, we're going to shoot a picture, and then I want to pull up a histogram there, and I want to see where it's at as far as exposure values. So, Liz, that a girl, would you point your nose back this way? That a girl. All right. And then tilt your head a little bit this way. There you go. And eyes into the lens right there. There you go. Well, take a look, Dave. You can see a histogram. The image looks okay on the preview. The histogram is all shift towards the left side. Well, hang on a second. She's pretty light-skinned, and she's got a medium tone blouse on. The background, as we know for sure, is a lighter color. Well, why is all that histogram kind of lumped off to the left side? To be honest with you, I don't really want to get into analyzing photographs to try to make them too light or too dark or just right. Here's what I want to do. I want to be able to invite my lovely subject onto my photo set. I want to be able to position the light the way that I feel as a photographer that I want to create an image. And I want to be able to simply set that light up so it's just right the first time. Well, in order to do that, we're going to first set the camera to manual exposure mode as we did before. Next, we're going to share information between the meter and the camera. So we're going to set them both up to the same ISO. And I'm going to stick with the 800 ISO I've been using today. I'm also going to use very little flash power here on the set today. When I use those big Pro Photo packs and I put big, large power volumes through them, sometimes it messes up the video cameras. It makes their auto exposure actually dip and raise. So we're going to stay right in that little ball game. I'm going to show you how we're going to use one strobe and make perfect exposure on the first shot. Ready? All right, first thing we want to do is we're going to make sure Liz is nice and comfy. She's sitting on a posing stool, as you can see. Next, we're going to have this light just positioned off to the right side. No fill lights, no second strobes, nothing, just one basic strobe. Then I'm going to squeeze on in here, and I'm going to be able to measure the light once again that's falling onto our subject. I don't want to use the light through, say, a spot meter for a job like this because it's just too difficult for us to get a correct exposure. Why not just use the lumisphere, place the lumisphere in the correct position, fire off the flash, and allow the flash to light up that lumisphere and interpret the exposure values for me. Here's how we do it. Going to set my flash meter to measure flash. And we're then going to set the shutter speed to 160th of a second. And I've got my ISO set to 800 ISO. I'm then going to take my flash meter and I'm going to put it right under my subject's lovely chin. And notice that I'm pointing the lumisphere right into the lens. Yep. I'm not going into the light, I'm not going into any room lights, I'm not going into the video camera. I'm just going to go right into the camera that I'm going to make a picture with. So I'm going to point it right into the lens and I'm going to gently squeeze the button. And when I do, I'm going to find out that I get an exposure reading. Dave, can you pull in on that one? Of, look at that, 160th of a second at f5.6. So guess what? I'm just going to set my camera for those same settings. 160th of a second, f5.6. I'm going to reconnect my camera, by the way, to the computer so that when I shoot this picture, you'll be able to see it at the same time I do. So here's my camera, setting it to f5.6, shutter speed to 160th of a second, and I'm going to shoot one really cute picture. There you go, nose back this way, that's it, head tilt more that way, that a girl, good, big smile, that a girl, and look at this. I've got a lovely image of a pretty girl and my exposure is wonderful. How wonderful, how accurate is it? Well, in fact, it's very accurate. What we'll do is we'll take that file and we'll print it here. Now, on your computer screen, when you're watching this video, you never quite know how your monitor's profiled, or if you have an older monitor, it may be dark or it may be bright. So what we'll do is we'll take that file and we won't do anything to it. We'll just print it out on a big professional inkjet printer here, and we'll hold it up next to Liz, and you tell me if the exposure's right or it's wrong. Is it too light? Is it too dark? Is it just right? Guess what you find out? It's just right. Even if on your monitor right now it appears that it's a little too dark, or if I appear a little too dark or too light, it's one of those things. We've got video cameras here, and of course you're watching it through the internet. We'll show you how it works. So, Saj, would you do me a favor? Would you grab that file and send it over to the printer for me, please, sir? Terrific. Well, what we learned is that we can have the information that's on our flash meter tell us how to set our camera. Then we just set the camera, and we can go ahead and make a file that doesn't need any post-processing whatsoever. We sent it over there to get it printed just to show you what it's going to look like, and we'll hold it up right next to Liz and see how close it actually is. But did you notice how quick I got the meter ready to go when I did that photo shoot? Yeah, I'm going to have to switch this meter between its modes. Do we want it to measure the available light by putting it in available light mode, or do we want it to measure flash by putting it in flash meter mode? Well, let me show you. Take a close-up look at the meter right here. Dave, if you could come in a little tighter on this. Sorry about that, buddy. Come in a little tighter. You'll see that it's 160th of a second at f5.6. But notice up on the top, here you go. Dave's got a graphic for you. There you go. Up on the top, you'll see that we have a various degree of modes we can choose from. On the upper left side, we've got that little sun, and that's the available light mode. Then you'll see to the right of that, we've got a little lightning bolt, and that means that that's going to be the flash, or actually open flash mode. It means we don't need any sort of cord or triggering device at all to use that. And then just to the right of that is going to be a lightning bolt with a little C next to it. And that little C means corded mode. And if we want to trigger our flash through a sync cord, we can simply just connect that sync cord right up. Dave, if you could get a shot of this. I typically leave the little plastic cap on there, but right down the bottom there, that's a PC sync cord port that we can easily plug a cable into and run it down to our ProPhoto pack. Going back to the screen, you'll see on the upper right end of our selection menu for modes, we've got a fun little one. That's a lightning bolt with a T. That little T means that it's in flash, which is the lightning bolt, and transmitter mode. And you're thinking, transmitter? What the heck is all that? Hang on a second, I'll show you. When we change our meter between different modes, we're telling it what to look for. For instance, if we have it in the ambient light mode, the little sun, and a flash happens to pop while we're measuring that ambient light, that flash doesn't register as part of our exposure. When we have our meter in any one of the lightning bolt or flash modes, the ambient light that we record while we're recording that flash value also records. So when we're in the ambient light mode, it only records continuous or available or ambient light, not flash. But when we're in any one of the 3 flash modes, it will record both flash plus ambient light. In future programs here, we're going to show you how to decipher the values between there. And in fact, Sekonic has some terrific different tools like the % of flash indicator, which I tell all my outdoor fill flash and sports photographer folks to use. And of course, it's got a wonderful little analog scale down on the bottom that helps you determine where your flash is in relationship to your continuous or ambient light. Those are more advanced features that we'll use later when we're going to move up our photography. But let's get back to that crazy little T, that transmitter. Remember that? Well, first of all, when I walked over to my set back here where Liz is, you'll notice that it was very easy for me to fire off the flash. Watch. Let's say I needed to make a flash meter measurement. I'm just going to be able to put the meter in position and then press the meter button, and it automatically triggers the flash, doesn't it? Well, let me show you how that works. First thing is that this Sekonic meter has an option built into it. And when you buy one of these, you can have the option or you can skip the option. The option is, do you want the Pocket Wizard transmitter built inside it? And if you take a look right there, you'll see, of course, there's our battery for the flash. There is the Sekonic and Pocket Wizard transmitter module. That pops right out if you don't buy one or you don't use one, and that will allow you to trigger Pocket Wizard no problem. Well, you have the ability to control which channel of your Pocket Wizards that you want this meter to trigger on, which is very easy to set. I've got mine, just for simplicity's sake, set to channel number 1. So my flash meter is set to Pocket Wizard channel number 1. So when I have the lightning bolt and the T, and I have my channel set to number 1, guess what happens? Bink, I get to fire my flash no matter where I am. Now those of you that happen to have this meter or a different Sekonic meter that's not Pocket Wizard enabled, or if you do have this meter and you didn't buy the extra module for the Sekonic Pocket Wizard link, you can always buy it and add it in later, but if you don't have it installed in your meter, you'll only see 2 flash modes. You'll see ambient light, you'll see the lightning bolt for a regular flash, and you'll see a lightning bolt with a C under it for corded flash. The lightning bolt T will not appear unless you install the Pocket Wizard inside there. Next, on top of my camera, as you'll see, I've got a Pocket Wizard plus 2 right up on top there, also set to channel 1. So when I just hit the test button, of course it's going to fire my flash. So I've got Pocket Wizard on top of here that's set to channel 1, and I've got Pocket Wizard inside my flash meter that's also set to channel 1, and I've got a really nice little ProPhoto light pack down here. In fact, I'll show you, that also has Pocket Wizard built inside it, right? See the little antenna there? That's Pocket Wizard built inside it. It's very easy to set the channel of these ProPhoto enabled packs. They have little R's at the end of them to let you know they have a radio built inside. So for me, Wireless triggering when we're going to measure flash is a no-brainer. I don't like sync cords, and if you want to use the sync cord port to measure your flash with your Sekonic meters or whatever meters you use, please go right ahead. It works terrific. I just don't like cords. They seem to get in the way. It's easy to trip on, and I just don't want to deal with connecting and unconnecting those little guys. I'd rather have the wireless version. Now, I do believe I heard our printer finish up. Could somebody grab me that print over there? And let's hold it up next to Liz and see just how realistic our light or dark values are. Thanks, Mr. Saj. There you go. Oh, I say we got a beautiful shot. Dave, can you get a shot of this? Look at this. Beautiful, rich tones. And look at that. Even from Dave, from where you are, our exposure is perfect. Is it too light? Is it too dark? Is it just right? Looks to me not only is it just right, but we have just hired the prettiest model in the world to come help us out today, haven't we? Well, I hope that you learned something from how we're able to shoot a regular pro camera in JPEG mode in standard settings, no alterations whatsoever, no exposure control changes, nothing. Straight out of the box, a Nikon D700. I could have just as easily done this with a non-pro camera as well as I could have with my Canon 5D Mark IIs, but we take the file, JPEG mode, send it to a professional inkjet printer which prints every bit the quality that your lab is going to, and print out a file that looks like this, and I couldn't be happier. Let's take a little break, and when we come back, I'm going to share with you some of my best tips on how you're going to keep your files just right. We'll be back in a few. What's the reference standard in wireless flash triggering? Pocket Wizard. In the studio, on location, or even in pro sports arenas, the core of Pocket Wizard's success is the affordable Plus 2 with 4 different wireless triggering channels. And there's the feature-rich Pocket Wizard Multi-Max with 32 channels and upgradable firmware. Thousands of photographers around the globe trust their shoots to Pocket Wizard. Shouldn't you?
Think low-cost photo education can't be any good? Think again. FridayPhotoschool.com delivers awesome online seminars that make you a better photographer. Full motion video seminars from top-notch speakers, now with big, crisp network web TV image quality. $10 to view live as we record them, $15 to download anytime.
Welcome back. We've got some more, I don't want to say advanced topics, but ones that we definitely need you to learn and think about and understand as you grow in your craft of professional photography. I sure did. I mean, let's see, over 30 years, I think, as a professional photographer, and I learn stuff all the time. So what I want to do is I want to share with you now some of the tips that I've learned that are kind of shortcuts, more like tips than they are shortcuts, on how you can get where you want to go with your photography without having to learn all those zigzags that I had to learn to get there. First up, when we talk about exposure control and making files that aren't too bright or too dark, we also have a few things that we need to consider. And the first one we should consider is, you know, the professional cameras, no matter which type they are, the ISO settings that are inside here, are in fact they accurate? When I set this camera to ISO 200, is it really 200? Because my meter, of course, is accurate. When I set my meter, my Sekonic meter, to ISO 200 or 400 or 800, I find out that, well, they're pretty darn accurate. That's a very powerful tool, even though it's in a very easy to use type of case. Are we going to match with our cameras? Well, this is where we see the difference between a pro camera and a non-pro camera. There are cameras in between, of course. So let me show you a couple examples here. This is a professional camera. This is one of the bigger Nikon cameras. Canon, doesn't matter. Here's Sony. They make a professional camera in there too. So do other brands. We're, of course, talking digital, not film here. Now here is a super zoom type of camera that's not really a professional camera. This is a Fujifilm long zoom, basic. Nikon, Canon makes these, Panasonic makes these. These are non-removable lenses. Good cameras, don't get me wrong. It's a very good camera. We can make really nice pictures with it on vacation or out for the weekend or even in a studio environment like this. But is the ISO going to be very accurate when we set it to 200 or 400 or 800, even 1600? Well, it does depend on the camera. It also depends on the lens. Yeah. Let's stay with cameras for a second. A professional camera will allow you to change your ISO from 200 to 400, which happens to be one stop. Yeah. From 200 to 400, you're doubling the sensitivity to light. It's a whole stop difference. From 400 to 800 ISO is another stop. Crazy, huh? See, all these things in photography kind of line up. They seem real confusing at first, but then once you get going with them, they actually line up and they're really simple. When we go from ISO 800 and we were to double the sensitivity of that chip, meaning it will react twice as fast to light, we end up with an ISO of 1600. And of course, there are third stop increments along the way. Interesting, huh? Sure. Well, when we use a pro camera and we go from 200 to 400, are we moving exactly a stop? Yeah, we pretty much are. On a non-pro camera, are we moving exactly a stop? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see a lot of things change when we go from lower ISOs, meaning 50, 100, 200, up to higher ISOs, which would be 800, 1600, and beyond. Professional cameras have a tendency to stay more accurate with their speeds, with their ISOs, when you change them than non-professional cameras do. But wait, where does that put cameras that are not quite pro cameras and certainly not quite non-pro cameras? There's a huge variety of those cameras. In fact, if you were to take a look, you'll see cameras like the Canon 50D, the D50. Wonderful camera. Canon really doesn't consider that a pro camera. I do. It passes all my tests of what a professional camera is. Can I use my flash meter, my light meter, my handheld Sekonic meter at ISO 200, 400, 800, 1600 with that particular camera? Sure, yeah. Find out it's very accurate. What about lesser cameras or older cameras? Well, there you're going to be in an experimental range. So when you really want to get serious about creating just right photos, if you've got a 4 or a 5-year-old digital camera, you may find out that you don't have the ability to shoot at ISO 400 with any sort of light value accuracy. A newer camera, a professional level camera, will give you that ability to flip your ISOs around and shutter speeds and apertures and have predictable, consistent results, because we know that the meters, in fact, are predictable and consistent. So if you have a difference between what your meter says and what your camera is going to say or how your camera performs, odds are the meter's right and your camera may be a little bit shy, if you will. But what's a bigger problem? When we're going to be using non-professional cameras versus professional cameras, we've got one very big area that we've got to take a look at. It's lenses. Yeah, it's not so much the bodies, it's the lenses. And you know what? I get to see college students all the time. We tour and speak to colleges, photo colleges all across the United States. And we love to tell them, hey, if you're on a budget, you're just getting started, skimp on the camera body, spend on the lens. You'll have much more performance, much less headache by using a good quality lens, even if it's on a lesser quality body. Why is that? We've got two lenses we need to deal with. Yep. We're going to have a prime lens here. This is a non-zoom lens. This happens to be an 85mm f1.4 lens. Nikon, Canon, there's other manufacturers that make these too. This is a non-zoom lens, also called a prime lens. Some people call them fixed focal length lenses. And in my hand is a low-cost, lightweight zoom lens. This is a 28 to 75mm zoom lens. All kinds of different manufacturers make these, and they're extremely popular. And of course, let me show you one more zoom lens. Here is one of the pro lenses that we use on a rather frequent basis. This is the Nikon version of a 70 to 200. Of course, the Canon version, same nice high quality lens. Now, why are we talking about zoom lenses when we're trying to keep our light values just right? It's actually very important. Let's go back to a non-pro camera. This nice little camera here has an incredible little lens on it. It goes from 30 millimeters all the way up to, believe it or not, 436 millimeters. It's a 30 to 400. Is the quality of this zoom lens good? Well, yeah. Good? Yeah. Great? No. Can I take this camera, which is a decent camera, I like it, the lens, which is a pretty darn good lens, can I bring it into a studio here and can I do the shot that I just did of Liz with the flash? Or can I put it into manual exposure mode and use my Sekonic meter and get a shot of the chickens the way I did? No. Why? That's not what this tool is made for. This is not a professional grade tool. Well, what's the problem? Let me show you. This zoom lens, even though it has a crazy range and the optics are fine and it autofocuses perfectly, it's got a big problem. And that is, as you change the zoom, it changes its exposure value. It changes how much light falls off as light transmits through the glass in here. Yeah. That means when you crack this open, and Dave, I'm going to ask you to come in nice and closer. In fact, I'm going to put this down so you can see it. If you come in, I'm going to show you the secret. Take a good look at that lens there, and you'll see way down on the bottom here, I don't know if you can see it on TV there, it says 28-53. Wow, what's that mean? A lot of times you'll see it as a 1:2.8, that's your aperture setting, dash, that means through, 5.3. That means that at some point in its zoom range, there you go, Dave. At some point in its zoom range, it's going to have an aperture value of f2.8 or 2.8. And at other parts of its zoom range, it's going to automatically shift to a darker aperture, to f5.3, without you knowing it. It's not marked anywhere. It doesn't tell you where it's 2.8, where it's 5.3, and where it's everything in between. That lens stamp on the front there is telling you, hey, this is a zoom lens, and when you zoom it, it's going to change its maximum aperture. The biggest hole in its disc is going to change. It's going to change from 2.8 to 5.3. That's a lot, right? 2.8 to f4, that's one whole f-stop. f4 to f5 is another 2/3 of an f-stop, and f5.3, which you never see on your camera, is somewhere between f5.6 and f5. So it's going to what we call shift its exposure value by almost 2 stops. Does that make that a horrible lens? No. The lens is fine. It's just not a predictable lens when you want to take full control over how you're going to make the light values just right. How can you take this, set up a shot to shoot the chickens, use your meter in order to get the exposure value, and then set the exposure value on the manual side of this camera or even aperture priority side of the camera and expect yourself to get a proper exposure? Well, you really can't. If you're going to use this, say for instance like we did of that shot of Liz, we set the ISO to 800 on the meter. And we set the ISO to 800 on the camera. We could do this on that little camera, couldn't we? Sure. And by the way, we're not picking on this little camera. Every camera like this has this same problem. In fact, we're going to talk about some pro lenses that have the same problem. But let's say we set that little camera to ISO 800. We've got 800 built into our meter, plugged into our meter. Then we decide that we want to shoot the shot of Liz with flash at f4. Can we manually set that little camera to f4 at, say, 125th of a second and expect to have a proper exposure? Well, yes, as long as you have it exactly between the zoom settings of the 30 millimeters and the 400 and whatever millimeters. You don't know where. So can you get an accurate light value out of that little bitty camera when you use it under studio-like, strobe-like, high-quality expectation conditions? No, it's not going to happen. Will, is this a horrible thing? Is this what's wrong with my photography? No. When you want to gain control and make your images just right, you want to be able to have predictable results. What this means is, if you're trying to take those portraits of Liz like we did, and you're trying to use this camera, you've now outgrown this camera. It's got a hot shoe. We can slide a pocket wizard on there. We can use a handheld meter, but we can't take this lens off there. Therefore, we cannot ask for predictable and reliable results under these kind of conditions with this camera. We can, however, if we pick up a pro camera, expect repeatable, excellent, just right results. Why? This lens, no matter where you set it, when you set it to 5.6, it's 5.6. When you set this to f16, it's f16. When you set it to f4.5, by golly, it's f4.5. If we were to take up a big pro zoom lens that does not shift, like the 70 to 200 f2.8, or some manufacturers make a 70 to 200 f4. And if we were to set that at f5.6 or at f8, we could zoom it all day long, and guess what? Its exposure is going to change very, very little, no more than maybe 1.5 tenths of an f-stop. Not 1.5 stops, 1.5 tenths of an f-stop. That's more than accurate enough for us to set this on the shot that we did today at f5, set our camera at f5, camera ISO 800, meter ISO 800, set the shutter speed where it was, I think it was a 30th, zoom in, zoom out, we're going to get great results every time. However, there are some zoom lenses that change. Yep, there are zoom lenses that as you change the zoom, they're going to change big time. We've got to be very careful with those. So, as we move along in our progression of photography, buying good lenses, particularly zoom lenses, that hold what we call a constant aperture setting are probably the way to go. Ask your camera dealer, hey, I'm going to buy a zoom lens. Does it hold the aperture setting that I set it to, or does it shift its aperture setting? Ask them. They'll tell you. If you can, buy, of course, lenses that don't shift. And, of course, a great tip from Crockett is buy the fastest lenses you can afford. You'll find out they autofocus so much easier and will make portraits like we did of Liz a lot easier to do because you'll guarantee that you're going to have terrific autofocus. So, prime lenses, meaning non-zoom lenses, you rarely have to worry about them shifting their exposure values. They're going to be right on. Good lenses like f2.8 lenses that don't shift, zoom lenses, they're also going to be pretty easy to work with, and we're going to allow to get just right light values. But if we go to crazy zoom lenses that go from 30 to 9 million millimeters, they're going to shift all over the place. And are we going to be able to get away with a really great portrait in the studio with them? Nah, I don't think so. How easy can we make it to use a meter to go with us on every job that we take off to go photograph? Well, easier than you think. One suggestion is, you'll notice I don't use the little lanyard. There's a little lanyard that pops out of this. It comes with every Sekonic meter that you can use that'll give you a neck strap. And a lot of photographers will wear their meter around their neck. Now, it's a rather long lanyard, and it will allow you to literally pick that meter back up and go ahead and make an exposure meter reading, and you're good to go. Well, I'm a rather big guy, right? So I'm going to need an extra long lanyard to get out of the way of that light meter, because I certainly don't want to shade it, right? Shade my body between the light and the light meter. So a lanyard around my neck, not one of the things I'm comfortable with. Some photographers also will use the lanyard as a safety device. They'll wrap it around their wrist a couple of times. That way, if accidentally they do let go of their meter, at least it's attached to their arm. It's actually a pretty good idea. Could become a little bit of a safety hazard for some folks. However, for most parts, it's a good idea. You know what else is a great idea? Every one of the Sekonic meters that you buy comes with a really nice little case that has a belt latch on the side of it. So you can actually put a little holster case onto your belt. Some photographers will put it onto their light stands, or they'll put it onto their tripod. In fact, I had little oops, and I was in a wheelchair for a while, and guess what? I hung it on the side of my wheelchair. So thank you, Sekonic, for making my life a lot easier. Some folks will buy specialty cases that act more like holsters that allow you to get that meter in and out much faster. Little flap, Velcro flap on the side. It's completely up to you. The goal is you want to be able to get that meter in and out of your hands as fast as you can. You probably noticed through the program here, we were shooting in real time. The images that you saw were real shots. They're not doctored in any way. And in fact, we shot tethered with a little wire that went between our camera and the computer so you could see those images pop up, and those are real. You'll also notice how quick and comfortable I am with a flash meter. In fact, while I'm sitting here talking to you right now, I've got the meter in my hand and I'm flipping it around and I'm very, very comfortable with my flash meter. Why? Well, it's part of what I do, and I have the ability to flip my meter from one mode to a different mode and use my meter to measure available light and flash and available light together, and I'm very comfortable with my flash meter. Well, Will, where do you keep your flash meter? Typically, pocket. Yeah. I try to keep a pocket open that has nothing else in it. I don't put my keys in that pocket. I don't put any change in that pocket. I try not to keep a cell phone in that pocket when I'm shooting. I'll just be able to flop this into my pocket and I'm good to go. I've got all kinds of cases and lanyards and stuff, but you know what works best for me? Just pulling it in and out of my pocket. Sure. Why don't you see which meter works best for you? Find out which one you're comfortable with. Read the instruction manual. Take some time and play with the meter. Your meter and your camera are going to share that information on how to make those pictures just right. Thanks so much for joining us here at the Friday Photo School studios. We broadcast fresh and live information on the first Friday of every month at FridayPhotoSchool.com. And of course, you're able to see programs like this not only streamed through our system, but you can of course download these anytime you like. There are programs just like this, both free and ones that you got to pay a little bit of money for, available for you on FridayPhotoSchool.com. Just click the downloads link and you'll see all kinds of seminars featuring me as well as plenty other photographers that are much more talented than I am. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us. Thanks so much to our good friends at Sekonic, and we wish you nothing but the best in controlling the quality of your photographs. We'll see you next time.